It's actually really surprising to me how we haven't covered Ben Shapiro that often on this channel. He's, I guess his popularity has dwindled a little bit compared to how he was like back when I used to sometimes watch his stuff. But nowadays, I mean, he gets quite a bit of views. How many views does this video have? Oh shit, this has 1 million views, and it's only from the 9th. Jesus, this one must have especially gone viral because of the BLM shit. And it's got overwhelming support, too. 2.9k dislikes to 71,000 likes. And it's funny, too, because I know this video is going to be bullshit, because the idea of Ben Shapiro debunking systemic racism, systemic racism is recognized by all of academia. So I'm very curious to see how pseudo-intellectual Shapiro, this absolute manlet, is going to try to debunk something that is very well known and acknowledged within the academic community. Hold on, chat. I gotta fix this up real fast. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and watch this video. I'm really excited. Like I said, I never watch these videos before I watch them live. Okay, so we're watching it for the first time here. Let's get into it.
There's a video that is going around on Facebook and on YouTube. It's from ACT TV called Systemic Racism Explained. Makes some interesting arguments, and I thought it's worthwhile going through them a little bit. So we're going to play.
He's not looking good being in quarantine. Look at him. He's got like does he have like liver spots? Hey chat, get real close to your monitor. Can you see him? He's got like liver spots or something going on here. Like he's getting old. I feel like Ben Shapiro might actually be like an evil wizard. You know, if we're getting into the J.K. Rowling meme, since we are in like the Harry Potter shit, since we are going to be covering the Turf Manifesto, I feel like I'm pretty sure Ben Shapiro has Horcruxes somewhere. That's the only way. That's the only explanation for how he could do what he does, right? He's split pieces of his soul into items that he's stashed around the world, and it's what's keeping him alive. And while he may look like a middle-aged Jewish man, he is in fact an evil wizard who is over 1,000 years old, and his life force is only subsisting off of a dark magic spell. Because I'm seeing liver spots there, so either he is not aging well for his age, or he unironically has Horcruxes. His wife is his Horcrux. Come on, Bizumi, we're better than that. We're better than that. Come on. I'm Pepe modsing, okay? That was low. All right. But I am going to go even lower. I'm surprised Ben Shapiro could take. I'm sorry. I'm not. Well, can I make this joke? Chat, is this the joke that gets me canceled? Hold on. All right. I'm turning around and then I'm doing the joke because I need to contemplate it for a second. Also, notice my new headset. It's a lot better than the old one. I'm surprised Ben Shapiro could find time to stop jacking off to his sister's leaked nudes to make this video. Okay. I had to bring it up. It's a funny meme. I had to bring it up because both of them are like ultra conservative and preach like prude whatever the fuck, you know, like the traditional values and shit on people who engage in that, and then Ben Shapiro's sister's nudes get leaked. Oof. Swerf, yeah, you got me, dude. You got me. Aw, don't yikes me, chat. Come on. Listen. Stop explaining the joke, it's pretty. It's pretty yikes. Okay, alright, I hate you guys. I really do. I hate you. I really do hate you all, okay? I really do. Alright, let's watch.
Play the video, we'll stop it, we'll discuss. This video is sponsored by the Benham Brothers' brand new course.
Nope!
This is Jamal. Jamal is a boy who lives in a poor neighborhood. He has a friend named Kevin, who lives in a wealthy neighborhood. All of Jamal's neighbors are African American, and all of Kevin's neighbors are white. Because Jamal's school district is mostly funded by property taxes, his school is not very well funded. His classrooms are overcrowded, his teachers are underpaid, and he doesn't have access to high-quality tutors or extracurricular activities.
This is how I feel as a streamer. Holy shit.
Kevin's school district is also funded by property taxes, so his school is very well funded. His classrooms are never crowded, his teachers are
Me versus Vosh.
very well paid, and he has access to high-quality tutors and lots of extracurricular activities.
So let's talk for a second about school policy. The reality is that if you wanted Jamal to be able to go to Kevin's school, what you'd want is something called school vouchers. You want people to be able to move away from their school districts. One of the chief reasons that Jamal is confined...
Wait, that's not a solution to the problem, though. Just like giving students school vouchers so they can go to better schools and not have to go to the shitty schools isn't a solution to the issue. Like, we can't just give every, like, poor black kid a school voucher to go to, a rich white school. Then the poor schools still exist. What we have to do is fix the actual problem. That's not an actual solution. What?
Confined to his local public school is because of democratic policy that has decided that you must go to school in the district where you live. And this
I don't care who made the policy that says you have to go to the school in the place that you live. That is, like, completely irrelevant to this problem. The solution is to actually fix these schools, give them more funding. Why is your webcam mirrored? Because I need to be able to I have to look this way, so that chat is on that side of the screen, and I'm, like, looking into the video. And I'm facing west right now. If you guys want to get an actual idea of my orientation, I think I'm facing directly west right now. So yeah, that's why I mirrored my webcam.
is also why a lot of people have left lower income areas and moved out to higher income areas specifically for better public schools. So if you want Jamal to have the same educational opportunities as Kevin, perhaps you should have school vouchers for private schools, or perhaps you should have charter schools, which is what Mayor Bill de Blasio in New York is fighting against.
Wait, everybody is fighting against charter schools. Charter schools are, like, universally viewed as terrible. Private schools also fucking suck. Giving every kid a voucher so they can go to their own school of choice isn't the solution here. We need to fix the shitty schools, and then it's not a problem anymore. And probably the go-to way to do that would be redistributive policy, right? Make it so that poor black neighborhoods can afford to pay into or pay more money into taxes for the local schools, or better yet, fund those schools by just giving them more money. Now, that isn't a perfect solution to the issue. I don't know exactly what we can do to fix this in terms of policy, but the solution definitely isn't just leaving them and giving some kids vouchers so they can go to whatever school they want while leaving the shitty schools to remain shitty for everybody else.
Or perhaps you should break the teachers' unions, which are costing a fortune, particularly on a disproportionate level in areas where they're not spending enough taxpayer dollars. So I'm all...
Leave it to Ben Shapiro to find an excuse to shit on teachers' unions. Oh, God. Somebody bring out the guillotine in Fortnite.
for improving Jamal's schools. I'm also all for Jamal having all the same educational opportunities as Kevin. The problem is, most Democrats are not.
Kevin and Jamal live
Well, good thing I'm not, like, a Democrat, right? I don't call myself a Democrat. I vote Democrat. But, like, what is... How is this, like, a response to what's being said here? This is the weird thing about Ben Shapiro. This is why he only ever speaks in places where he has the mic and he has, like, the power in the discussion, because he's capable of speaking over people, or, better yet, obfuscating the actual argument that's being made here, right? So the argument that was made here was, hey, if you're white, you have a higher likelihood of going to a better school than if you're black. And Ben Shapiro's response is, well, then you want to give him a voucher so he can go to a school just like Kevin's, and it's actually the Democrats who made it so that he can't. Like, what is... This wasn't even in an argument made by the video. He's just trying to find a way to throw blame at people he doesn't like.
only a few streets away from each other. So how come they're growing up in such different worlds with such different opportunities for success? The answer has to do with America's history of systemic racism. To understand it better, let's look at what life was like for Kevin and Jamal's grandparents.
In order to understand what's going to happen in this video, you have to understand how systemic racism is being defined. Systemic racism is a really amorphous term. It could mean many things. It could mean that the institutions of today are racist, in which case everyone would oppose them.
No, Literally no academic goes by that definition. The idea of systemic racism is the combination between individuals who exist within a system that may be racist and the disproportional outcomes that affect people of a certain race because of the way that our system currently exists. The reason why we call it systemic racism isn't because the system itself is made up of racists, but rather that the outcomes of how the system exists disproportionately harms people of a particular race, generally black people or non-white people.
Or it could mean that all inequality is explainable by racism, which of course...
Nope, nobody makes this argument either. No one says that all inequality is explained by racism. How can you start a career as big as Ben Shapiro's on being this much of a dishonest hack?
Is not sustainable. It's not a good argument. The argument that this video is going to try to make is that all of history has meaning. And that is true. History does have consequences for today. The problem is, as we'll see, the video tries to explain all inequality with reliance on history and no inequality with response to exacerbating levels of income inequality, exacerbating levels of single motherhood, personal decision-making, or any of the other variables that could come into creating the gaps we see today.
Wait, having single parents and almost everything that you listed there is a part of systemic racism, except for personal decision, which actually, no. Personal decision is also an aspect of systemic racism because you're a product of your environment. Your environment shapes and dictates the choices you're likely to make later in life. If you're raised in a really poor household and you have a really shitty childhood, you're way more likely to grow up and be more likely to commit crime. Because you have to. Because that's the choice. That's a choice you might have to make in order to survive. All of these things are explained by systemic racism. I guess Ben Shapiro is just too narrow-minded to recognize that, because to him, systemic racism has to mean that everybody involved in the system is racist.
After the Civil War, many government agencies started to draw maps dividing cities into sections that were either desirable or undesirable for investment. This practice was called redlining, and it usually blocked off entire black neighborhoods from access to private and public investment. Banks and insurance companies used these maps for decades to deny black people loans and other services based purely on race. Historically speaking, owning a home and getting a college education is the easiest way for an American family to build wealth. But when Jamal's grandparents wanted to buy a house, the banks refused because they lived in a neighborhood that was redlined. So Jamal's grandparents were not able to buy a home, and because colleges could prevent them from attending through legal segregation, their options for higher education were really scarce.
So let's talk about redlining. Redlining became illegal in the United States as early as 1968. The Equal Credit Opportunity Act.
As early as 1968. As early as 1968? Early? 1968. Do you guys have any idea how recent 68 was? Many of your parents were probably still alive. I'm pretty sure, what was it? I think, I tuned into Destiny's stream the other day, and he was actually watching this video, but I had to leave because I didn't want any spoilers for it. I think Destiny said something along the lines of, the youngest black person to have been around for, to have been alive during, or in school during segregation, just turned 50, or 58 or something. Is in their 50s or 60s right now. That is not old. Segregation and redlining did not end a long time ago. 60s. Oh, it was 60s. Yeah, I had to leave because I didn't want this spoiled for me, because, yeah. Holy shit. How can you say that with a straight face?
Was followed by the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act in 1975, which was a predecessor to the Community Reinvestment Act, both of which were an attempt to ensure that people who are living in low-income minority neighborhoods could actually get loans. And these things were very effective. In 1992, researchers at the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston tried to look
Can I point out that this is actually irrelevant? The fact that it ended doesn't mean that the effects of it aren't currently affecting people. This is like this is so hard for me to get through to people, right? There's very few times where I'll have a conversation with like a reactionary, and they'll be like, why are black people in such a terrible position in this country? And their go-to, like, reason is, oh, because black people make worse decisions, and they like to walk around with, like, their pants hanging down, yada yada, all that racist shit. And I'll be like, well, I mean, up until, like, 50 years ago, black people were treated as literally second-class citizens, and you can even make the case that today they still are when you consider all the police brutality and everything that they've been dealing with. I mean, this BLM shit is pretty big news, and they just respond, yeah, but that was like 50 or 60 years ago. How much of an effect does that have today? It makes me want to kill myself. How do you get through to some people the fact that something that happened 50 or 60 years ago was not that long ago?
Look at the data. They collected information on some 30 variables related to lending decisions. They found that virtually all of the difference between minority and non-minority denial rates was explained by those variables. A reanalysis of that information found that black...
I don't trust Ben Shapiro to present any of this data or any of these studies in a responsible, meaningful way. Also published February 1997. I don't trust Ben Shapiro to like present any data in a honest way. Every time I review a video like this, I end up going out of my way to look up what he's referencing. I read the whole thing, and they come to a completely different conclusion from Ben Shapiro. There is a very, very good reason why the entirety of academia... Why do I keep saying academia? What is wrong with me? Academia recognizes systemic racism and its effect on the black community today, or non-white, just the people of color today.
Owned banks were actually lending to white-owned businesses at higher rates than they were lending to black-owned businesses. Furthermore, if it seemed that banks were discriminating against black borrowers on the basis of they needed to have higher credit qualifications, what you would see is lower default rates from black clients of banks, from people who are borrowing money from banks in the black community. There are zero studies that show any of this. So the bottom line is this. Redlining was an evil and awful policy. It was made illegal in the 1960s. By the 1980s, the banks were not lending at disproportionate rates. In fact, if you look at among different communities, as Thomas Sowell has pointed out...
even if all of this disparity was fixed by the 80s, that doesn't mean you had like an entire generation. I mean, then there's also every single generation of black people that came before. You have an entire generation of black people in this country whose parents and grandparents were unable to take out loans on a house. Generational wealth is very important. This includes knowledge. This includes inheritance. This includes the literal passing down of actual wealth. Like, make that an emote? Nah, we can't just make every funny face that we pause Ben Shapiro on into an emote.
Asian Americans get loans more easily than white Americans. That does not mean the banks are being...
I just realized Ben Shapiro's eyebrows are on fleek. I think my eyebrows are still better, but his eyebrows remind me of like those fuzzy caterpillars, you know? Like the ones that that if you touch it, they like puts like pieces of what feel like fiberglass into your hand if you touch it.
Racist toward white Americans on behalf of Asian Americans. When it comes to college education, it is also worth noting that, yes, there were many universities that were segregated. There were many universities that did not allow black people to attend. Since the 1970s, the most prominent measure that has been used in order to admit black students to major universities...
Oh, no, I remember what it was that Destiny said when I tuned into his stream the other day. It was, the first black woman to go to a non-segregated university just turned 62 or something like that. I think it was 62. I don't remember exactly. This was like days ago. I think that's what it was, if I remember correctly. 65. Thank you. Any DGGers in here that remember that? Okay. Okay, cool, yeah. I mean, that was not long ago. Imagine, that's 65 years old, guys. That is not old. He said 68, but it was 65, because chat corrected him. Thank you, Drax. That is what happened. Yeah, that's not very long ago, guys. Like, for real.
Universities across the country has been affirmative action, which actively discriminates against people who are not black in favor of black applicants, specifically by ensuring that black applicants don't have to have the same test scores or GPAs in order to get into those same schools. So not only has policy been corrected, it's been overcorrected in these areas.
Kevin's grand.
I'm pretty sure, like, the affirmative action shit has actually shown to negatively affect white people more than it does or to negatively affect like people who are not white than it does affect white people. Because isn't it like Jews that end up getting into getting degrees more, or getting like accepted to colleges and whatnot because they do so well? I'm pretty sure it actually doesn't like it's not harming white people so much as it is harming like the groups it was meant to help and try to fix the disparity. At least from what I've seen, it doesn't seem like affirmative action programs are going to be the solution to fixing this kind of inequality in colleges. It seems like we need to go for the root of the problem. Trying to do a stop, because that's what it is. Like, just doing affirmative action plans are just a stopgap. That doesn't actually solve the actual problem. We have to get to the root of the problem, why there's so much income inequality, and why black people in this country are in such a terrible situation compared to other groups, to actually solve these issues. It doesn't seem like trying to do like these half measures is going to work.
Parents, on the other hand, got a low-interest loan to buy their first house and got accepted into a handful of top universities, which traditionally only accepted white students. This opened up a wealth of opportunities that they were able to pass on to their kids and grandkids.
Yep, generational
wealth. The basic
wealth.
assumption of this video is that if your grandparents are rich in the United States, this means that you are rich in the United States, and that if your grandparents are poor...
I'm gonna kill myself. I'm gonna do it. I need a knife, I need a gun, I need something. I need something right now. Holy shit. How did he actively... He got away with this? Literally 71,000 people saw this and liked it after witnessing what we just witnessed, chat. 71,000 witnessed him do that straw man, that blatant straw man of the argument that was made. Nobody said that. All they said was, if we go back like 1 or 2 generations in your like family tree, and you find a bunch of people who are able to go to good schools and make a lot of money, and they were able to pass that down to their kids, and they were able to have a decent life, and then they passed that down to you. This could be knowledge. This is just the concept of generational wealth. I mean, we can just look it up right now. Don't make fun of my spelling, chat. How to build generational wealth. Here, let's find the definition. The concept of building generational wealth is easy. You simply have to acquire... Wait, why is it telling me... I want to find a direct definition of generational wealth. Okay, well, this is the basic idea of it anyway. You simply have to acquire assets or save cash that you don't intend on spending in retirement, then you pass those assets along to your children when you pass away. This sounds easy in concept, but can be difficult to put into practice. Generational wealth also includes knowledge and like teaching and just like being in a good environment, right? Like this can include like the environment that you grew up in. It's not just money. Like when we talk about generational wealth, the wealth involved isn't just cash. You're talking about being able to go to a good school because that's where you learn. That's where, you know, how you get a diploma. The way that you're raised. The environment that you grow up in, that leads heavily to the type of decisions you're likely to make, the type of support that you have when you're growing up, heirlooms, estates, things like that. There's like, yeah. Inheritance is a big deal.
Poor in the United States, that means that you are poor in the United States. This is factually untrue. The reality...
It's untrue. Yeah, you built a hell of a straw man to burn down there, Benny boy.
The reality is that income changes over time, that there are an enormous number of people in the United States by percentage who are able to rise from poor to middle class and their children from middle class to wealthy. The biggest problem that we have in the United States right now is not a historic wealth gap. The biggest problem we have is an income gap in the United States.
He's just going on with it, like arguing against the straw man, huh? He's just not even going to acknowledge the actual argument? Okay.
States. And there's some fascinating statistics surrounding this. There was a Harvard study recently that showed that black males who were growing up in the same household incomes as white males were actually underperforming.
Like I said, never trust the way any data that Ben Shapiro presents, never trust it to be properly represented.
Their white male counterparts, even in...
All these people are demagogues. They lie, and they bend and contort data to fit their worldview for their audience. Don't believe these people when they present data. If you're going to watch one of these people and you're going to like try to take what they say at face value, don't do it. Look at the things that they are citing and read the actual like data itself and the studies that he's referencing and find out what the actual people who collected and synthesized the data what conclusion they came to, because it's almost always a different conclusion than Ben Shapiro or whatever these right-wing demagogues come to. They always like to warp and twist data, and they never agree with the outcomes that the data collectors or the data synthesizers came to.
High-income neighborhoods. You would think that all of this might imply racism, except for one inconvenient fact in the study. Black women who are growing up in the same high-income neighborhoods as white women growing up in the same high-income neighborhoods, black women were performing at exactly the same or higher rates than white women in those neighborhoods, which would suggest that there are other factors at play other than simple racism.
That's kind of hyper-specific, right? Hold on. Let's rewatch that again.
Counterparts even in high-income neighborhoods. You would think that all of this might imply racism, except for one inconvenient...
Wait, so black women in high-income neighborhoods do not outperform white women in low-income neighborhoods? Is that the argument that he's making? Okay, this is pretty hyper-specific, but okay. Go off, King.
Convenient fact in the study. Black women who are growing up in the same high-income neighborhoods as white women growing up in the same high-income neighborhoods, black women were performing at exactly the same or higher rates than white women in those neighborhoods, which would suggest that there are other factors at play other than simple racism. Furthermore,
holy shit! Yeah! Benny boy! Benny! That's the straw man that you made. Nobody is saying that everybody is racist, and that's why black people tend to do worse. People are arguing that the system in which we live disproportionately impacts black people, or broadly speaking, non-white people, in a bad way. This is all he has to do. He just has to straw man the argument of the thing that he's covering, argue against the straw man, and then he gets 71,000 likes on his video? Holy shit! And people say lefties are grifters.
Furthermore, the basic idea that most wealth in the United States is inherited and that millionaires are really only millionaires because their parents were millionaires, that really isn't true.
No, I know, that's not true. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, majority of millionaires didn't inherit their wealth. Yeah, we know. Okay.
The vast majority of millionaires and billionaires are people whose parents were not millionaires.
Ah, there it is. Yeah, I already know that talking point, Benny. You're not hitting me with anything new, bud.
And billionaires. Chris Hogan, who's a black financial expert, he did a survey of 10,000 people, and what he found was that of those 10,000 people, 74% of millennials believed millionaires inherited their money, 52% of baby boomers did, but only 21% of millionaires received any inheritance at all. Just 16% inherited more than $100,000. Only 3% received an inheritance at or above $1 million.
So here's the problem, though. Inheritance isn't just the money and the estates and the actual material things that you inherit from your family. You also inherit a lot of things just from the way that you grew up. If you grew up and you had a fairly decently well-off family, doesn't matter if you're wealthy, like even if you're middle class, and you're able to go to a decent school, and you're able to go to a decent college and get a degree, it is very possible, though unlikely, there aren't a lot of millionaires, that you may be able to work your way into becoming a millionaire, into working to that point. Though it's extremely rare. And that seems to be how the majority of millionaires become millionaires, at least what the data shows. But they still received inheritance. The inheritance was just knowledge and growing up in a decent environment. That means that millionaires' kids have it so hard because they didn't inherit $100,000? Well, I mean, yeah, even if they didn't inherit a single dollar, they probably had their parents pay their way through college. They probably had a decent environment to grow up in where they were able to go and get extracurricular activities in schools and everything like that. They grew up in a decent environment, which allowed them to go to a decent school, get a degree, and work their way to becoming a millionaire.
In reality, the best path toward wealth in this country is income mobility, not inherited wealth.
This opened up a wealth of opportunities that they were able to pass on to their kids and grandkids. Even as late as the 1980s, an investigation into the Atlanta real estate market showed that banks were more willing to lend to low-income white families than to middle or upper-income African-American families. As a result, today, for every $100 of wealth held by a white family, black families have $5.04. A 2017 study confirms that redlining is still affecting home values in major cities like Chicago today. This explains how Kevin and Jamal inherited vastly different circumstances.
As it turns out, there are some complicating factors that don't get cited in this video with regard to this data. The Federal Reserve Board economists tried to explain that this data did not take account of differences that were not income-based, things like liabilities, employment history, credit record, and other relevant variables.
Wait, that's irrelevant to the argument. Ben Shapiro is still going on about, with the straw man, the video is trying to claim everyone involved is racist. That's not the argument being made. The argument is that this is negatively impacting black people to such a massive degree that it's disproportional to the way it affects everybody else. That's why it's racist. Maybe the word racism is the problem here. Maybe when we have the word racism being used, that's where the issue is. Oof. Because he assumes it has to mean that everybody hates black people or something.
That should have been considered. It should not be particularly surprising that discrimination in the past has impact on the actual income of people who are living in the areas that were denied loans. That shouldn't be a major surprise. But that is not the only disparity, obviously. That New York Times piece they are citing says, quote, they estimate the maps account for 15 to 30% of the overall gaps in segregation and home ownership that they find between the highest risk area and the second highest risk areas. Those were the ones that were being classified. The truth is that when it comes to redlining, you have to look at the gradations as well. There is always going to be a difference in the availability of loans to people who are living in the highest risk.
True. Good thing this doesn't attack the argument the video is actually making.
Risk areas as opposed to the people who are in the very lowest risk areas. Another factor is that if history does make a difference, then if you are denied loans in a particular area, and if there's less money in those areas, and as crime goes up, and as property taxes...
He's just gish-galloping over an argument that wasn't even made. This wasn't even like an argument that was made, and he's just gonna gish-gallop about it for like 10 minutes. I got the Vosh host. Wait, Vosh hosted me? Did we get it, chat? Did we finally get it? Yeah! There we go. I see you fuckers in Vosh's chat. If you're in Vosh's chat right now, say something. I want to see who's watching from there. I want to see. Empress Trans Girl, I see you. Hey everybody. Hi there, Vosh chat. Hopefully you guys are having a good time. Thank you for hanging out. I appreciate it, guys. You guys are super awesome. All right, let's continue.
Kick in, there's not enough money to take, and as schools get worse, obviously that's going to continue to have effect in that particular area. That doesn't mean the same people are...
Thank you, Vermin. Oh yeah, how do you like your green name and the check mark I made? Guys, we're gonna take a brief away from this video here, because if I keep watching I'm going to kill myself. I made little icons, new icons for the moderators and the notable. So notables now have a green version of the Twitch verified checkmark, and moderators have a little wrench and cog icon. Oh yeah, I know, Vermin. Thank you, I appreciate it. So yeah, let me know how you what you think of that. I think it looks pretty cool.
Living in that area who always lived in that area, or that people who grew up in that area in 1960 necessarily have to live in that area, or that their grandkids have to live in that area in 2020.
Unfortunately, the story doesn't end there. A big part of systemic racism is implicit bias. These are prejudices in society that people are not aware that they have.
One of the big problems with implicit bias, it is very, very difficult to quantify, identify, and studies that supposedly determine that your implicit bias results in real-world action are deeply flawed. Implicit...
Oh no, Benny. Oh no. Oh no, Benny. Don't do this to me, buddy. Please, listen to me. Okay, hold on. I need to clear my mind. I'm gonna kill myself. Okay, here we go. It is very hard to quantify how much your implicit biases affect your actions in the real world. It is very, very difficult to do this. It's very hard. So... I'm not going to trust any studies that Ben Shapiro presents, because he always does it very dishonestly. All these people do. And I don't feel like going in and reading every single one to see the outcomes and the conclusions of the people who gathered the data and made the studies themselves. But, regardless, there is a reason why academia recognizes the existence of implicit biases, and the fact that it is very unlikely that implicit biases do not affect your decision-making process, at least a little bit. The existence of these implicit biases most likely do affect the way people behave and act.
Bias assessment tests, for example, are so significantly flawed they are virtually unusable.
Let's go back to Kevin and Jamal.
Wow, he actually didn't cite anything there. I was expecting him to cite something. Okay.
All odds, Jamal manages to be the only student from his high school to get accepted into a great university. The same one that Kevin and his high school friends are attending. But after Kevin and Jamal both graduate, Jamal notices that his resume isn't drawing as much interest as Kevin's, even though they graduated from the same program with the exact same GPA. Unfortunately for Jamal, studies show that resumes with white-sounding names get twice as many callbacks as...
Oh, I'm so excited to see how Benny Boy responds to this. There's no way to deny this. This has been, like, established every single sociologist, everybody in the academic community has recognized that, like, these studies. I bet he's gonna bring up that one. I know there's that one that he's gonna bring up where it's like they did like one where it was a black person and a white person, and the black person had a white name, or like a really white sounding name that you could argue kind of sounds like a black name, and then still got called back or some shit. I don't remember exactly what it was because it was a long time ago that I remember seeing like the debunk to that, but I'm pretty sure that's what he's going to bring up because that is the only plausible thing that he could possibly try to bring up in response to this, unless he just bites the bullet and accepts that this is true, which he probably should if he's like an honest person.
Identical resumes with black-sounding names.
The research is actually a lot more interesting than what is being portrayed in
really?
this video. There are several studies here. There was one famous study that was done that suggested that first name differentiation was indeed being used by employers. So if your name was Lakeisha, for example, this is the name that is actually used in the study, Lakeisha versus Greg, that you are less likely to get a callback. There was another study that showed a historically black last name like Washington or Jefferson provided no actual differentiation from historically white names, like Greenberg, for example.
Washington and Jefferson are last names that people, when you hear someone with the last name Jefferson or Washington, you think of a black person? Listen, chat, I'm not trying to get canceled here, but I'm going to be very honest with you, okay? I do not think of it, when I hear Washington or Jefferson, I don't think of a black person, okay? So yes, first names are generally what make the difference when we look at applications, right? A name like Lakeisha, which is arguably kind of a likely black, if you find someone with that name, they're probably black, right? I think we can all agree on that. I don't think that's the hottest take that's ever been made. As opposed to Greg, fucking Greg. Yeah. I think there's probably a difference there. And even then, even if it is just class-based, like the idea that like, oh, someone named Lakeisha will probably have grown up in a worse socioeconomic situation compared to somebody named Greg, even if that is the case, and that's what affects the responding to applications thing, guess what? Doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter. The fact that this negatively impacts black people more is the argument that's being made. This is what systemic racism is. He's right. Most black people have basic ass last names like that because of English slave owners. Well, yeah, that's obviously the history behind a lot of black people having last names like Jefferson and Washington, because those were common last names back during the slave times, and a lot of like slaves' last name would be the same as their like owner, right? But regardless, it's the first names that actually matter here. Ben Shapiro bringing up the last names doesn't like lend anything here. It doesn't lend anything to the argument. Most people don't think. Most people hiring from like resumes don't know the history behind the black struggle in America and slavery. I'm pretty sure. The other study that he's citing used the name Ryan Washington. Wait, Ryan Washington, a black person? That was like the black person they were referencing? Solius, wait. The first name of the person he's referencing in the other study was fucking Ryan? Solius, please tell me that I'm right here. Please tell me Ryan Washington was the name of the black person that he's in the study that he's referencing. Solius said no and left? Okay, maybe not. Alright, someone else can let me know. Because when I think of Orion, I think of like a white kid with freckles. Because there was a white kid with freckles that I went to, when I was in high school, I was a swimmer, and there was this kid on my swim team named Ryan, and he was white. He was very, very white. He had freckles, and he had blonde hair. That's what I think of when I hear fucking Ryan. Okay, dude.
So if your name was Steve Greenberg versus Steve Jefferson, you're just as likely to get a callback as Steve Jefferson. What that suggests, and this was
Yeah, probably, because no one thinks Steve Jefferson is a black person.
Was confirmed by subsequent studies, is that the actual issue here.
The girl was Chloe. Oh, wait. So the white person's name was Ryan, and the black girl's name was Chloe? Wait. Someone in YouTube chat says in the study that Ben Shapiro is referencing, the black girl's name was Chloe. Ah, yes. The historically very well-known black name Chloe. It's not like I think of a white girl with blue hair from Life is Strange when I hear that name. Okay, let's continue.
Is a
God,
question of class
you guys are laying the donos on thick all of a sudden. What the hell?
Discrimination, not an issue of race discrimination. In other words,
Ben Shapiro, of all people, who suggested union busting earlier in this video, is engaging in class reductionism right now. That's what I'm witnessing right now. I need... I'm sorry, I feel like my... Holy shit.
words, the reason
that shit made me dizzy.
That people are discriminating against Lakeisha as opposed to against Steve Johnson or Steve Washington is because people are actually using the first name as a stand-in for social class. They are figuring that if you were named Lakeisha, it's because you probably came from a more impoverished background. Now, this is not...
This is being pretty charitable to the people This is being pretty charitable to the people who made these decisions on these resumes. That's pretty charitable. And even if you're right, Benny, I will give you the benefit of the doubt. Let's say you're right. Let's say it is entirely class-based, and there was not even a drop. Well, okay, everybody is racist, okay? So this is the clear thing, okay? Everybody is racist, a little bit. Everyone has internalized racism within them, but there's a very big difference between, like, for example, there's a very big difference between a guy who sees a black person and runs up to them and calls them the N-word and punches them, a guy who sees a black person and goes the other side of the street, a guy who's like, everybody has like this one racist family member who doesn't think they're racist. It says things like, I'm not racist. I don't think... being an N-word isn't because you're black. It's a lifestyle. It's a way of behaving. Has anybody ever heard that before? My uncle used to say shit like this, or still does. Like, white people can be an N-word if they act like it. It's so weird. Yeah, so you'll hear that from like a lot of like middle-aged white people. Like, there's that kind of racist. Then there's like maybe some implicit biases that you have that maybe influence your decision making. You know, like crossing the street or clutching your purse a little tighter when a black person walks by, you know? Okay.
Restricted to the black community. This happens in the Jewish community as well. If you get an applicant and the applicant's name is Ben, you might treat that applicant different than if that person's name is Benjamin.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna throw out that application because there's like at least there's a non-0% chance that it's Ben Shapiro applying for the job.
You might treat a Menachem different than you treat a Mike. And that is because you are trying to read into the person your perceptions of culture or perceptions of class, not really perceptions of race. That's really, really important when you look at these particular studies and suggest that racial discrimination rather than class distinctions are at the basis of whatever hiring discrimination is happening here.
So it's a mix of both. It's an intersectional... You have to take an intersectional look at this issue to come to the actual conclusion we need to come to. Ben Shapiro is engaging in class reductionism right now. I didn't realize Ben Shapiro was a tanky. Ooh, tough scene.
Implicit bias is one of the reasons why the black unemployment rate is twice the rate of white unemployment.
Well, this tends to neglect one key factor. What did you major in? What did you study? It turns out that people who major in education aren't going to do as well as people who major in engineering. According to research from the Center on Education and the...
Sure. And that's a problem in its own. The argument is that it's racist because it's negatively impacting black people more than it negatively impacts white people. No one is claiming that it's because everybody hates black people, Benny. Also, no, I don't have anything else to say. Let's go.
workforce at Georgetown University, this is a quote from PBS, African American college students are more likely to pursue majors that lead to low-paying jobs, setting up many for future debt and underemployment. Over time, these occupational choices contribute to the wealth and opportunity gap between whites and blacks that spans generations. Anthony Carnival, who's the director of the program, he says basically, African Americans have been going to the right church but sitting in the wrong pew. In a way, they are using education to climb the social and economic ladder, but they're being steered toward majors that will make them low earners. So, in other words,
they are being, it even says he read it out, and he didn't acknowledge it. They're being steered towards majors that will make them lower earners. I'd be actually very curious to read the study he's reading. Who do you think is steering them towards these pursuits that are making them lower earners? Because it sounds like the way that the study worded it, there's some external factor that is pushing them in that direction, that outside of their own personal decisions, which is obviously what Ben Shapiro is about to try to make the argument of. Maybe a system. Maybe a racist system? I'm getting really good at the Minecraft villager voice. They should like hire me to do like the voices of villagers in Minecraft, honestly.
There are several confounding factors that are not being taken into account in this video. 1, what college did you go to? 2, what did you major in? And 3, what kind of job did you get afterward?
You can see evidence of systemic racism in every area of life. The disparities in family wealth, incarceration rates, political representation, and education are all examples of systemic.
Wait! No way he argues against this. I was watching Vosh's stream last night when he brought this up. Vosh updated his research document, and I took I'm pretty sure he did it. As a matter of fact, you can't make the argument that actual legitimate hatred of black people isn't involved in the incarceration rate. As it turns out, if you're black and you are on a murder trial and it's the decision whether or not you get the death penalty, a black person is significantly more likely to get the death penalty if they murdered a white person than if they murdered another black person or a non-white person. Did you know that? He can't argue against that one. I mean, the racism within the incarceration, like when it comes to incarceration, is undeniable. Like Ben Shapiro cannot call himself an honest actor, which he isn't, and argue against this one. This is like established data. Representation, I mean, that's like undeniable. Like you can just look at the numbers on that one. Education, we've already gone over that, and wealth, I mean, we've already gone over all of that.
Systemic racism.
Now we reach the crux of the matter. The basic idea here is that any inequality can be chalked up to systemic racism. We are now ghost hunting. Notice, they've said
it's not ghost hunting. The system that the issues that cause it are products, or I should say mechanisms in a system that is racist because of how it disproportionately negatively impacts black people. That's why it's racist. Come on, Ben. Come on, dude. Okay.
Nothing in this video about incarceration. Nothing about incarceration.
Did I announce this stream?
If more black people, percentage-wise, are arrested than white people, that must be due to systemic racism,
Yeah,
and
I did.
not
Okay,
due to the number of crimes being committed by individuals who make a decision to commit a crime. When it comes to representation, the truth is there are many, many black Americans.
Okay, we've already gone over the fact that your upbringing influences your decisions, and if you're more likely to commit a crime, then it's most likely because of your upbringing. Okay, we've already gone over this. This is a mechanism of systemic racism.
In Congress, we've had a black president of the United States.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I was just checking. I want to make 100% sure I announced it, yeah.
People choosing to run and people choosing to vote, that is an aspect of American freedom. And when it comes to education, there are plenty of affirmative action programs that exist at virtually every major university. In fact,
I already argued why affirmative action is probably not good. We don't need to go over this again.
There are entire university systems, like the University of California, that have gotten rid of the SAT and the ACT as admissions criteria specifically because they weren't allowing enough minority students to attend.
Fucking good. The ACT and SAT being a requirement for getting admitted to colleges is fucking bullshit. Because if you're wealthy, you can take the SAT over and 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 over again. At least here in Florida, I was able to. I think I took the SAT around 6 times. Like, it was like a ridiculous amount of times I took the SAT, because you're allowed to take it a bunch of times and submit your highest score. So you can just keep on taking it if you have enough money. It's expensive, but you can just keep on taking it. And yeah, guys, I did fucking terribly in school. I'm not gonna lie. I like around my junior year, I basically gave up on school. I almost dropped out, but I just barely managed to push through and get my my diploma. Yeah, standardized testing has been like just lambasted by the entirety of the academic community, like higher up, right? I think my highest score I got was like a 900 on the SAT. I did not do fantastic on the SAT. There weren't a lot of colleges I was going to be able to get into on that, but I wouldn't have been able to get into college anyway because I wouldn't have been able to afford it. So good thing I have this, huh? Yeah, no, I'm gonna be honest. When I took the SAT, I Christmas treed a lot of it. Basically, the entire math section. I actually tried on like the English and reading and science section, the stuff that I actually like. But when it came to the math section, because I fucking despise math, I Christmas treed the fuck out of that. I Christmas treed the fuck out of the math part of the SAT. Oh. But yeah, if you're like if you're coming from a poor black family, you might not even be able to afford to take the SAT unless I believe your first attempt might be free. I may be wrong, but I think what is Christmas treeing? Christmas treeing is when you just randomly, like if you have a multiple choice answer, because the way that the SAT works is it's usually like a Scantron. You have like a little thin piece of paper with a bunch of bubbles on it, with correlating to a particular question, and then you have a booklet. You're not supposed to write in the booklet generally, and that's where all the questions are. And you're supposed to read the questions and then bubble in the answer on the Scantron. So what I would do is when I got to the math section, I just fucking I'd look at the question. Usually I would Christmas tree it if it was something I knew I couldn't do, but if I thought maybe I could do it, I would try a little bit. But like I hated math so much, I didn't care. At that point in my life, I was like borderline suicidal. I was pretty sure I wasn't going to make it to 20, and I was just like, I don't give a fuck. Why am I going to put the effort into this bullshit test if I don't even want to go to college, right? I can't even afford to go to college. Why the fuck am I like even trying here? Yeah, y equals mx plus b was basically all I came out of that shit remembering. All right, let's continue.
So to attribute all inequality to systemic racism is simply to say that everything you don't like must be due to systemic racism.
Unfortunately, the biggest challenge with systemic racism is that there's no single person or entity responsible for it,
True.
which makes it very hard to solve. So what can you do? The first thing you can do is work towards becoming more aware of your own implicit biases.
We should always, as decent people, be re-examining our own biases and trying to wipe out bad thoughts we may be having about other people. But the idea that something as vague as you had a bad thought about a group is now responsible for the income inequality.
Nobody's saying that, Ben. Benny boy, nobody is saying that. Nobody.
Equality between black and white is sort of an absurd contention in the absence of any of it.
All he said in the video was that implicit biases are a mechanism in a massive, unbelievably large system that has resulted in the black community being in a much worse position than white people in this country.
Available evidence.
What are some prejudices that you might hold that you're not aware of? Second, let's acknowledge that the consequences of slavery and Jim Crow laws are still affecting access to opportunity.
If he tries to deny this, I'm going to kill myself on stream, and you're all going to watch it. It's going to happen. If he tries to deny this, the fact that like the effects of this still are felt today, I'm going to do it
Today.
It is certainly plausible that slavery and Jim Crow have affected how people's paths have gone in life and the circumstances of
acknowledging it's plausible is close enough. Okay, close enough to, close enough. I don't... Okay, close enough.
their birth. But the question is, how much?
Saved.
If we are going to change policy, and if we are going to effectuate change, shouldn't we be focused more on what are the bad policies today that specifically are keeping people down, and what behaviors can we change today to make our opportunities better, rather than focusing in on slavery or Jim Crow? The fact is that even if you buy into the entire narrative of systemic racism promoted by this video, it changes nothing, and the video is even acknowledging as much.
Yeah, it's not acknowledging it. It changes nothing if that's the straw man that you're making. The video is literally just analyzing the issues that are faced, the data that backs them up, and the causes of them. I don't think that the video's even presented a solution yet, because the solution is so complicated and so systemic that it's not as simple as something you can just have in a video.
Result, we should support systemic changes that create more equal opportunities for everyone. Increasing public school funding and making it independent from property taxes would be a great start, so that poor and wealthy
True.
districts can receive equal access to resources.
The suggestion that simply pouring
True, that would be one solution. That is actually a solution they presented, but that still wouldn't fix a lot of problems, because even if you're living in low-income housing and you're going to a good school, you're still living in low-income housing. A lot of the way that your schooling affects the way you're going to grow up also involves, like, what extracurricular activities do you have access to? Do you have two working parents? Do you have one parent? A one-parent household, that one parent has to work? Do your like siblings and other people living there also have to work? Is there a daycare that you can go to? Are there any after-school programs? Tutoring? Like, there's just so much that goes into it. Just equally funding the schools in these areas isn't going to solve the problem. But that is definitely one possible solution that could help.
Pouring money into public schools is somehow going to be the solution has been belied by nearly every independent study ever done of public education. Obviously, we should be spending more on schools where not enough spending is going on, where there aren't school books or there aren't enough desks. But the real problem that's existing in educational performance has very little to do with income and a lot more to do with the access to educational opportunity provided in homes. If you have a single family home, it is very difficult for mom to be able to help with homework. If you don't allow kids to go to better schools outside their neighborhood, rather than simply pouring money into failed neighborhood schools, then you're not really granting opportunity.
Systemic problems require systemic solutions. Luckily, we're all part of the system, which means that we all have a role to play in making it better. Peace.
It's easy enough to say that we all have a role in making the system better, but when you suggest very few practical solutions other than rote...
The video wasn't made to suggest like every possible solution that would fix the problem. It's just acknowledging a problem. Guys, chat, hold on. Chat, answer this question correctly. What is the first step to fixing a problem? What is the first step to fixing a problem, chat? Acknowledging it, yes. Acknowledging its existence, identifying it. Exactly. That was the purpose of this video. You're completely right, chat. And Ben Shapiro is pissed off this video. This acknowledging and identifying the existence of this problem doesn't provide enough solutions. They provided like one or two, and that's fine, but that doesn't seem to be the point of the video.
Democratic policies that have been failed nearly every time they've tried. It makes it difficult to believe this isn't just a political ploy rather than an argument in favor of bettering individual human lives. To deny the effects of history would be idiotic. History obviously has consequences. And to deny that racism exists would be similarly idiotic. But to attribute every problem in American life to racism or inequity is to be foolish and counterproductive and not to make the world a better place. For more on a lot of these topics, go check out my brand new book,
Nope! Never read anything Ben Shapiro writes. It'll make you want to kill yourself. Okay. Oh, I'm sweaty. What's my AC say the room is at? Oh, we're at 79 degrees right now. Oh, God. Yeah, no, I'm not letting him shill his shit on my platform. Oh. Yeah, that was a terrible video. I like how this video was, Ben Shapiro debunks, in like all caps, viral systemic racism explained video. He didn't debunk anything. He literally didn't debunk a single thing about this video. Maybe I should name this video. I think I'm gonna name the video something along the lines of Manlet Ben Shapiro fails to debunk systemic racism. What do you think? I feel like that would be a good title for this video. I think that'd be a really good title for this video. Think about killing yourself too much? Yeah, maybe. Maybe once I'm out of Florida, that'll stop.